What's up, my friends in film fandom, wherever you may be and however you may be watching? Thank you so much for giving us just a little bit of your time. No snot coming out of Jeremy's nose, maybe some tears at some point when he apologizes for whatever he's going to apologize for to be Heather in this video. But we are here, we're breaking keeping up with the 90s, but we're getting into the scary movies. I don't know why. It's got to be one of you guys. I might have to turn down. But yeah, we are finishing up the 90s, but we're getting into the scary stuff with one of the more interesting movies that we've ever reviewed. I got to admit, I was trying to put together the rundown for this, and I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to approach it. It's such an unusual movie. This is the most independent film we've ever broke down, and it's going to be interesting to talk about. But here to talk about it with me is two of my amazing co-hosts. Lady Cora is not with us tonight, but she will be with us again, hopefully more over the course of the next month. The next month's going to be a hard one for Lady Cora. She is not an appreciative fan of the horror genre, of the blood and guts, but hopefully she will find her way to at least a couple of these videos because we like having her around. But I've got my two horror aficionados here, so I'm just fine. Starting with my hetero life mate, Jeremy. What's up, brother?
I don't know. Could everybody see me? Everybody see up my nose? We all see what's going on? Yeah? Okay. I'm not going to do that the whole time. They're all over here screaming like, it's Josh. I'm like, I was trying to be Heather, but okay. Whatever.
I still say you're Mike.
Josh, yeah. Which one wore the red flannel? That's what got me was the red flannel.
I think it was Mike. Maybe. Yeah, I think he's right.
Yeah, no. Josh has the long hair. Mike had the beard. That's how you tell the difference.
All right, fine, whatever. I don't know. Heather Mike.
He's one of them. Just appreciate the work that he did. Damn. That's all that matters.
We don't want to assume your gender, so if you want to be Heather Bunny, you be Heather. We live in that world these days.
Wow, thanks.
My man, the shape from the Lone Star State. And the shape from the Lone Star State, my man Tex. What's up, brother?
You know, I've seen this movie probably 100 times, and every time I watch it, I ask the same question. There's 2 beds in that hotel room, and there's 3 of them. So who's checking up with Heather in this movie? Or is it like a hop-on-pop situation where they all kind of party, if you know what I'm saying? I always wonder that.
Checked up. There's a lot of alcohol.
That's what I'm saying. I think there's a little keeping it fast and loose with the free love, you know what I'm saying? But what's up, yo?
They were drinking Johnny Walker straight from the bottle. They weren't even bothered pouring it in glasses. So who the hell knows what happened in the hotel room that night? Somebody got drunk and they all got murdered in the woods. That's all we know. But yeah, we are here, of course, tonight to talk about the Blair Witch Project. Again, one of the more interesting films that we've ever tried to tackle on this channel, and I'm eager to get these guys' thoughts on it. The Blair Witch Project is a 1999 American supernatural horror film, written, directed, and edited by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. It's a fictional story of 3 student filmmakers, Heather Donahue, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard, who hike into the Black Hills near Burkittsville, Maryland in 1994 to film a documentary about a local myth known as the Blair Witch. The 3 disappear, but their equipment and footage are discovered a year later. The purportedly found footage is the movie that the viewer sees. Myrick and Sanchez conceived of the fictional legend of the Blair Witch in 1993. They developed a 35-page screenplay with the dialogue to be improvised. A casting call, advertisement, and backstage magazine was prepared by the directors. Donahue, Williams, and Leonard were then cast. When the Blair Witch Project premiered at Sundance at midnight on January 23rd, 1999, its promotional marketing campaign listed the actress as either missing or deceased. Owing to its successful run at Sundance, Artisan Entertainment ended up buying the film's distribution rights for $1.1 million. The film had a limited release on July 14th of the same year before expanding to a wider release starting on July 30th. While critical reception was mostly positive, the audience reception was actually split. On Rotten Tomatoes, they have a score of 86% based on 165 reviews from critics with an average rating of 7.7 out of 10. The website's consensus reads, quote, full of creepy campfire scares, mock doc, the Blair Witch Project keeps audiences in the dark about its titular villain, proving once more that the imagination can be as scary as anything on screen. The Blair Witch Project grossed nearly $250 million worldwide, making it one of the most successful independent films of all time, as well as the 41st most profitable horror film at the time. While also being a sleeper hit, the film launched media franchises, which includes 2 sequels, Book of Shadows and Blair Witch, novels, comic books, and video games. The film was credited with reviving the found footage technique, which was later used by similarly successful horror films such as Paranormal Activity and Cloverfield. I'll start with you, Jeremy. I mean, give me some quick thoughts on what you think of the Blair Witch Project before we start digging into the spoilers.
I mean, you want to talk about the little movie that could. That's insane, man. If you just got 3 of your friends, went in the woods and just dicked around about some witch you don't definitely see, and you made $250 million. I mean, if I could do that, I mean, shit, I'd be a happy person. But talk about, two horror movies in the 90s that really revived some shit was Scream and then the Blair Witch, I would say. Like, this found footage shit, walked so Paranormal Activity and, like you said, Cloverfield can run. Another, movies that do this for the entire, runtime when you're like, you can't see what the fuck is going on. About lost my camera there. Holy shit. That was the whole movie. If anyone wants to know, thank you for coming to our review. Goodbye. No, but it's fun, and that's the thing is when there's something you can't see, you have to make it believable. You have to make the audience feel like these people are genuinely scared. There's shit going on that like they don't understand where it's at or what's what's actually happening around them. You got to sell it for something you're not going to show, and I think it does it pretty well. This reminded me of something I watched. I actually watched something like Marble Hornets. It's kind of what the vibe it gave me before I actually saw this. So it was kind of the same vibe. And again, although you see Slender Man in that, I mean, still you have to be able to sell it, and I think the 3 of them do a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, Tex, how about you? Give us some brief thoughts on what you think of the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, this is one of those historic films. This film took a little from Cannibal Holocaust and a little bit of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It took the realism of what Cannibal Holocaust was, because obviously that was another found footage film. Some argue the first found footage film, but it took that approach to it, but it added. This felt real when you watch this, like the original Chainsaw does. It's got that grittiness to it. It's dirty. It's raw. You feel like obviously this wasn't shot on 16 millimeter on a steady cam. That this isn't professional, because as Jeremy just said, half the time the camera's pointed at the ground over in the trees or it's bobbling up and down. But this movie was groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and I can't wait to get into it with this review here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for me, there's a couple things about this movie that really stand out. One is I've said 100 times as we talked about horror movies that low budget and horror go great together. That it's something that works out very, very well. And they made this movie for almost literally bus fare. I think in the beginning. Now I've heard a lot of different things about the budget of this actual budget of this film, but it was something in the range of like $30,000 or $40,000, I think, to shoot. They shot it.
You hear something, Tex?
Yeah, I
was waiting for Tex to react, but
I hear some shit.
Yeah, they shot it over 8 days. It was definitely guerrilla style filmmaking, very independent budget. And very independent mindset.
Just in case, you never know.
It ended up making hundreds of millions of dollars. It's just very simple. The other thing it does that I really like that I think more horror movies should do, especially some of the smaller ones. It wouldn't work for something like a Friday the 13th where you kind of have to see the bad guy, but you never see what's chasing them. You never see what's doing all the damage. Like it said in the consensus review on Rotten Tomatoes, it's your imagination is the villain. You're building this construct in your own head to scare yourself, and that's even more scary than, because it's one thing to see the guy in the hockey mask with the machete or something like that putting a face to it almost unintentionally dulls it down a bit. But when there's so much unknown, your mind starts to wander about what is this thing, and the lack of definition for this thing makes it that much more scary. So that was those are a couple of things that really jumped out at me about this movie that I enjoyed back then when I watched it, and I enjoyed as I watched it again today. But let's get into the first topic tonight. And that's just independent filmmaking. I mean, independent filmmaking at its best. And Jeremy and I are both Kevin Smith fans. We've talked about it a lot. One of the great independent filmmakers, maybe the greatest ever independent filmmaker, Kevin Smith. This coming from that time where the 90s was a great decade for independent film. I consider Dazed and Confused kind of an independent film. There was a lot of young filmmakers that were just out there throwing shit against the wall, but sometimes they really they absolutely crushed it and hit some home runs. This was one of those movies. Jeremy, I'll start with you. I mean, again, the independent filmmaking kind of breeds a different kind of creativity. I think that's something that we saw during this independent film movement of the 90s. Do you agree?
Yeah, and when you have, next to nothing for a budget, I mean, I know we say like, if any one of us could have $1 million, that's awesome. And I mean, but in terms of making a movie, that's not a whole lot. But I mean, you got to get creative with what you do, what you want to put in your movie, and whatever idea, like you said, you want to throw against the wall. And you could think of some cool shit. And like you said, like something like this, like I said, I could have grabbed 2 other friends and gone out in the woods and just, fucked around and screamed in the distance and tied up nice little bundles of sticks and left somebody maybe a tooth. I don't know what the hell that was. It was whatever was on the Josh. I'm sure it was a tooth or something.
It was an actual human tooth. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, right. And you just get or what did he say? I know why you like this camera so much. It's like it's not not real.
It's like it's not even real.
Yeah, like you're looking through a filter, through a lens rather. Yeah, because that's the thing. Like we talk about, like you said with Kevin Smith, it's like, man, I would love that dude's such a huge inspiration. I'm so glad I got to meet him at Comic-Con. Super cool dude. And I would love to do shit like that. Like, just throw an idea out there and just have some fun with it. Like I even thought of something related to some analog horror that I'm like, you know what? Maybe if we start up a YouTube channel just for that, so people want to watch it. Have some twists and turns. So just makes me feel all good inside.
Yeah, Tex, what about you? I mean, like I said, small, low budget horror. I mean, you obviously you've seen way more horror than me. I would imagine that some of your favorite horror films are stuff that were made for $50,000, $60,000, $100,000, something like that, and they're big on the practical effects, and they have to. And when you don't have the big budget to rely on, you kind of have to rely a lot on story and character. I mean, what did you think of the independent filmmaking aspect of this film?
Yeah, I mean, how many times have I preached the B movies in horror, the exploitation on this channel? Most of the best horror films are not the franchises that have 15 different films. It's the ones that you've never heard of that inspired those to be made that never got a chance. When it comes to Blair Witch, these guys, they were very smart when it came to the independent side, because obviously they didn't have the money to do it. So where did they go? They went viral marketing. This was really the first movie to go big on the internet. They had whole websites dedicated to the lore, to missing. Have you seen posters with Heather, Mike, and Josh? They even made. I was just telling Frank, it's free on Tubi. It's called Curse of the Blair Witch. It's a mockumentary, kind of like a Dateline crime special, whatever. Something that you would see on Discovery Channel or History or whatever. But it's all about Blair Witch that aired on Sci-Fi Channel, and I believe it was up for sale as well. So they didn't have the money to promote and go big, but what they did was they promoted smart. And this movie sold. I can remember because I was about 11 or so years old when this film came out, and everybody was talking about it. I remember I talked my dad into taking me to it. This is why I say this is similar to Texas Chainsaw, because this is one of those movies that was believable, that was real. And the way that the independent artist, I will always support independent artists, especially on YouTube now. There are so many fan films of different franchises that you can go watch, from zombie movies to slasher movies. So many out there. There's more movies than what just get released in theater or on Netflix. Just go on YouTube and put in your favorite franchise and put fan film after it. I guarantee you something will probably pop up. And these are the guys that are passionate. They know the stuff. They're the nerds about these movies like we are. So they put the effort into it. To them, it's not a job. It's a love. And you could tell the independent spirit in this film of, like Jeremy said, we're going to go out into the woods for 8 days and see what we can get. They didn't know what was going to happen. They just trusted their gut. They didn't need Hollywood creative writers to, make a good story that's built a universe on it. It is what it is.
Yeah, like I said, the 90s were a great decade for independent filmmakers. Like I said, you gave us the Kevin Smith and Richard Linklater. It was something not just with Days Confused. He did a couple of movies in the mid to late 90s that were very independent filmmakers, budgets of maybe a couple $100,000, if that. Also, so many filmmakers that are big now that were kind of kickstarting their careers then on the much smaller projects. J.J. Abrams, I think, was doing some work in the mid-late 90s. Just getting started and stuff like that. So I love guerrilla filmmaking. I mean, you don't realize it now, but like the first Terminator film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, directed by James Cameron, he shot a great deal of that kind of in the guerrilla style. There was no permits to go film late at night. As a matter of fact, I think the chase scene where they were being chased by a Terminator in the semi towards the end of the movie, that was shot like on the go without any permits, without any planning. They just went out there with a couple of cameras and the actors and like, let's go do this scene real quick out in the middle of the night in LA. And so that, I think that's one of the reasons why that film has been so beloved over time, is that it was kind of shot in the same style. A much bigger budget, of course, but I mean, it was kind of shot with that grittier style. It's something that makes this movie a lot more presentable. Aesthetically, it's got something that a lot of movies don't have, especially a lot of horror movies. People tend to overproduce some horror movies sometimes because they want to go for the blood. They want to go for like the crazy kills. They want to go for the one-liners. But it's like sometimes you just need to play on people's deep-seated fear and not make. Look, there wasn't a lot of blood in this movie. There wasn't even really a lot of jump scares. It was just constant tension right up until that climactic point where everything kind of comes to a head in the house, and then the movie just ends, and it leaves you kind of jittery, like not knowing how things ended, just knowing that they ended abruptly, and you're still left with so many questions. Obviously, this stuff's not real, so I mean, so maybe some people would consider themselves a little blue-balled for it, but still, I mean, it's one of those things that just builds tension for the whole ride, and you're wondering when it's going to blow, and it does the last like 5-10 minutes of the movie, and then it just stops. And you're just kind of left wondering what the hell happened. What the hell did you just watch?
That's why Texas Chainsaw ends the same way. It just stops, and you're like,
yeah,
that chainsaw still like ringing in your ears. It just stops, cuts to black, and the credits roll. And I was like, first time I saw that, I was like, what the fuck?
It stops. It stops abruptly because it's like it's real. It doesn't have a polished ending that 15 people sat in a boardroom and figured out. How can we choreograph this for the most satisfying ending?
End it.
It's just do it. Some of the best horror films, the hero doesn't win. When you've got the giant guy with a chainsaw chasing you, he kills the final girl, and that's the end of the movie. Sometimes those are the best ones because, are you telling me that 90-pound girl soaking wet beat this gigantic killer every single time? I mean, come on, he needs to win every now and then. But, to touch on what Frank said, if you are relying on jump scares, you're bad at horror. Jump scares are the kindergarten level of what horror is. If you can't scare somebody with your story and you're relying on a cat jumping out from behind the wall, you need to go do something else because that's some elementary level stuff. You know what I mean?
There's a way to do jump scares properly, and I've always said this. I'm like, if you just crank the volume up for a split second, or like you said, it's usually benign shit at first, like, oh, a window opens up or a bird flies in, there's a cat. It's like, okay, that's dumb. And I'm so, I mean, I'm sure like Texas too. I'm sure even Frank's like, we're kind of jaded. We know it's coming, or we know the build up. We see it coming. The thing that will actually scare me, the way to properly do this, you don't make a build up. You don't make a sound. You just, like, my biggest example is The Descent. When they're right there and all of a sudden it flips on, that bitch is just right behind her. No sound, no build up, no nothing. Just shit. It's like you're not ready for that monster to be standing 2 inches from her face. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way to do it. Don't make a sound. Don't just put it there for a second. That's how you scare somebody. And I was gonna say, like, the end of Quarantine too. You know what I mean? She drops the camera and then just gets drugged. That's it. Movie's over. They all died. Also a very good found footage film. Well, yeah, found footage. Allegedly.
Yeah, what do you guys think of the viral marketing for this movie? Because it's something that happened a lot in the starting from about this time through the early 2000s. Like J.J. Abrams was really, really good at it with a couple of his first big movies, Cloverfield, Super 8, things like that. Yeah. But I mean, what do you guys think of the idea of the viral marketing as opposed to just making trailers and releasing them the old-fashioned way? Tex, I'll go to you first.
Well, it adds another level of dimension to the world that you're going into. If, traditionally, we know a Halloween film's coming out, and we're going to see a trailer about 6 months ahead of time. Then we're going to get a second trailer about 3 months ahead of time. And then right towards the, maybe a week or so before, they'll give you a little stinger just to remind you one more time. And that's really all you're going to get. What this viral marketing campaign was, like I said a minute ago, they did a full mockumentary as if this was completely legit, like this crime happened. The lore from Rustin Parr to the little girl being drowned in the lake to Coffin Rock. They had old historical guys talking about it. They went above and beyond this viral marketing from internet sites. Have you seen me? They put in the effort to build the world. Think about it. In the first two movies, you never see the witch. And Frank, what did you open with? A invisible witch created video games, a film franchise, comic books over nothing. And what built that? The lore and the viral marketing stuff that they built and put into this thing. Because it's such an immersive world. The theories of, like I was telling Frank before we started, the most important or the most entertaining thing about this movie is not the movie itself. It's the lore and the stories within it. I've got 3 theories that I'm going to get into here in a little while of what may have actually happened in this movie that are so interesting that people to this day are still talking about what actually happened to these people. Is it this situation? Is it that situation? Whether they're right or wrong, they're real. You know what I'm saying? Because people keep them alive. But no, the viral marketing was impeccable. I mean, maybe the best today.
Yeah, Jeremy, what about you? I mean, I know when you were younger is when stuff like Super 8 and stuff like that was coming out, and J.J. Abrams worked the viral marketing angle big time through Cloverfield and some of his earlier, bigger movies. What do you think of just that method, and why do you think it died out so quickly? Because it seemed like it was something that was happening for a lot of movies, and then almost as soon as it popped up, it just kind of disappeared. What do you think of that?
Well, what I was going to add to like what Tex said is this is, I think, also what helped this movie is it came out at the right time. It came out at that sweet spot of, like I said, when we reviewed The Matrix, you're talking about computers and the internet and shit like that. And I'm like, it's still kind of in its infancy. And it's like, not everyone really has access to it. And if you do, and it's like, it's something kind of new and it's exciting. It's got this weird aura about it. And, as soon as it's there, there's already, there's already a dark web. There's already shit, you know what I mean? There's stuff on there. You're like, oh, have you seen this? Have you seen this video? You know what I mean? That starts to, and like I said, that's again, the time like I grew up in like the internet becoming what it was. So I'd see stuff like that. And I'd be like, if I saw this in that time, I'd be like, wait a minute. I mean, I probably know it's a movie, but I'm like, I would have probably thought, wait a minute, this did this happen to these people? Like what? Because like Tech said, you add more to it. You put in you give it more of its legitimacy. Like you have missing posters of the people's actual names. Like, what happened to these 3 kids that went out to the woods. And you, like I said, you build off of that where it's like, it's still kind of a word of mouth type deal, but like kind of through the internet, like I said, where it's not, you don't have things like YouTube at that time. You don't have Google, you don't have Reddit, you don't have Facebook, nothing like that. No Twitter or X, whatever the fuck we're still calling it now. But to answer your question, I guess it dying out, it's kind of like what I said, like how technology works. Like all of a sudden, then probably by the early 2000s, when you do have YouTube, like in 05, probably, and Google, it already blossomed out to this whole thing. And it's like, okay, it's kind of everywhere and it doesn't quite work the same. You know what I mean? It's like, if a few people do it and it hits, I'm like, yeah, but then if everybody's trying to do it, it becomes a little saturated. And I feel like it's not to say things can't still work. I mean, that's the beauty of the internet now. Like I said, I could throw some little mini horror series together. And that's the nice part, is that like so many people have access to it and they'll probably see it and it'll get seen by more people. But it has that, like I said, that has that weird mystery to it where not many people have access to the internet and they're like, ooh, did you see these missing posters? These kids went in the woods and they saw something. What is it? Nah, we don't know. If you only would have kept the fucking map, dude. Kicking it in the creek.
I've got theories about that. Hang on, we'll be talking about that. Don't worry. I've got theories.
80-minute movie and like fucking 10 minutes of it screaming about a fucking map. I'm like, oh my god.
Right. There was a couple points in the movie where I was like, can you just move on? I mean, we're you guys have been yelling at each other for most of the last 20 minutes of the film. Can you just move on to like the witch eating you or whatever the hell's going to go on?
Yeah.
But for me, the viral marketing, I got really wrapped up in it around Cloverfield because I just thought it was interesting, and I really wanted to see Cloverfield. I was really into it up until the movie came out. I do like the movie. I think it's good, but I am really surprised that it didn't become a cheaper, more effective way of marketing films, other than just paying a bunch of money to make a trailer and then paying $5 million for 5 seconds or whatever, the Super Bowl or whatever. With the internet growing at an exponential rate, especially around the turn of the millennium, I'm really surprised that a lot of production companies didn't see this as a much more cost efficient way of mass advertising to the people that you want to advertise to, the people who at the time were kind of in my age group, the ones that were like the 18 to 30 range where I was at the time. So I'm really curious as to why everybody walked away from it so fast, because it seems like it would have been a much more efficient way of advertising going into what would be the next 20 years. But it just stopped. I mean, even J.J. Abrams out of nowhere just stopped. He did it really heavily with Cloverfield. He did it with Super 8. And then I think part of what happened, at least with J.J. Abrams, is like he moved on from that to do things like Star Trek, then eventually Star Wars, and then other, Mission Impossible, then other big things, to where probably, when you're working with Paramount or you're working with, whatever, they're probably like, no, wait, you can direct it and create the stuff all you want, but we really want you to go our way to do the marketing and shit like that. So maybe it wasn't because he wanted to walk away from that viral marketing. Maybe they just kind of made him do it. I wouldn't imagine that marketing would have been something that would have worked for something like Star Wars. Like when he was announced that he's going to be making, The Force Awakens, I don't think that he was going to be like, hey, so by the way, Lucasfilm, I'm really thinking of just not doing trailers, just doing like this viral marketing thing, like who is Rey? Here's all the clues and shit like that. I don't think that would have worked. So maybe
the less like you make it seem like it's like we know it was a movie that was made, but like I said, like what Tex was saying with this lore and this mythos around this story, it's like, the more you, like I was trying to say, the more you feed into the legitimacy of it, you can start to, there's that little voice, that little doubt where you're like, maybe it was real. You know what I mean? Like if you can get people to just have that little shred of doubt, you know what I mean? And that's what kind of makes you start pondering, like, maybe did this happen, or is this a recollection of something that happened? Like, did someone really find footage like this? And they're like, oh, that'd make a cool movie. But you're like, yeah, but what actually did you find? You know what I mean? What was the actual thing you found? Because that's
I think the real reason, though,
That's one of my calls for this movie is I'm like, someone had to go there and find that film, but whatever. Sure. These three people got fucking lost and never found again, but somebody found the fucking tape, whatever.
I've got another theory. I've got theories behind all that too. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
The one thing that I think killed the viral marketing more than anything, though, is social media. Because instead of having to create websites and spend $5 million on a trailer for the Super Bowl or la-di-da or whatever, you can now, let's see, when did MySpace and all of them really get started? Early 2000s, right?
2000.
I remember
2, 3, maybe.
I had a MySpace page like 2005, but I was late to the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, when there's this free thing on the internet, you can just create, here's our movie, here's the trailer pinned to the top of the thing. It's taking care of it for you. I mean, realistically, that's probably the answer if I had to guess. Because now, there's I every time I hear of a new film that's going to come out, the first thing I do is run to Twitter or X, whatever, to see if they have their own page. And guess what? Now I get all the information pumped right to my phone. Now it was different in early 2000s, but the point still stands. So it is what it is.
I think when it kind of full circled back to stuff like analog horror, it's like that's what sells the scare is like if you make it feel like it's something that is real and you don't play too much into the someone made it, you know what I mean? Like if you craft it to the point where it's like, the only thing you give people is that like, this is definitely a commercial for some creepy drug that makes you not, murder people with a big smile on your face. Shit like that. You know what I mean?
Do you remember when the first Paranormal Activity came out?
Like 2005 or some shit, yeah. Or
it was around. It was like I don't remember the exact year. It was like early late 2000 era. But they somewhat did a viral marketing campaign. But what sold that movie was, if you've never watched Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity back to back, it is an amazing double feature, by the way. That is a lot of fun to do. But I think Jeremy said earlier,
2007. Wow, I was completely wrong. 2007.
Yeah, I knew it was somewhere around.
Okay, I thought it was earlier.
The viral marketing was kind of us because like when Paranormal Activity came out, the first weekend. After the first weekend is really when it blew up and everybody, did you go see, blah, 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 whatever. And a lot of the same stuff happened with Blair Witch Project because I can remember, do y'all remember who was that chick on the E-News updates that used to be on TV back in the day? I can't remember what her name is now, but I remember her talking about like the scariest movie of the decade and, Blair Witch came out. Just the word of mouth is what sells these found footage kind of things because they're supposed to be real. You can't trot your star out to the Tonight Show for something that's real. I mean, it's just the way that it works. There's different rules here.
It does occur to me that there have been a couple of instances of kind of the viral marketing fairly recently. Smile did it.
Yeah.
Smile had people going to baseball games and standing right there behind the catcher with a big smile on their face.
Oh, hang on. I was just at NASCAR. What's that new movie coming out with the guys, with the men and women who have the shaved heads and like it's robot from the ears back? It's a new movie that's coming out. The Creator. At NASCAR, I was just at Texas Motor Speedway. They showed them on the big screen and on television. They had like 8 people in complete makeup in character sitting there, so they still do that kind of stuff. It's crazy. Like they were crazy looking. I didn't get to see them in person. I just saw them on Big House, the big TV.
A lot of people think that they still do that. You guys remember all those crazy clown sightings that were happening, like in the woods and back roads or whatever for a long time. A lot of people thought that those were like some kind of weird marketing for like it or some other products that were coming out at the time. So, and there was no real. I mean, I just thought it was a bunch of people acting like assholes, but a lot of people thought that
I think it was
done very intentionally. Yeah, a lot of people thought that stuff was done very intentionally to try to gin up the fear of clowns to get people all worked up to go see Andy Muschietti's It.
Well, that's a good way to get yourself fucking shot. I'm just saying, don't do that to me.
I know, I almost shot one. I was like,
trust
nope,
me,
not tonight, son.
We had a rough year that year in the haunted cave because somebody at the bot he always dresses up like a clown. I'm like, are we allowed to do that this year? We kind of can't, right?
I was hoping to get to see one in person. I never got to see one though. I was disappointed.
He made a big. He still wore it anyway. He didn't give a shit, and he wore a big sign around his neck that said "Clown Lives Matter" just to feed into that too. And I'm like, that's funny as hell. I love it. Got to roll with the jokes, man. That's all you got to do.
Right.
Yeah, I saw a couple of them. One of them, I don't think he was trying to scare anybody. I think he was just walking down the road in a clown suit. He wasn't trying to act a fool. But I had gone into to this gas station not too far from my place, Jeremy, the Speedway, and I was getting something out of the fountain to drink, and some guy wearing a clown mask and just like a jean jacket and a pair of pants, like walked up to the end of the counter and like next to me and just kind of leaned up against his arm folded, and I'm like, I noticed you're there. Hello? Okay, and I'm getting my drink and my stuff, and it keeps moving closer. So I turned around and I just pulled my shirt up over my holster, and I looked at him.
Yeah.
He tried to walk away. I was like,
hey, turned into Clint Eastwood.
He did, like, make my day, bitch. Right.
I was like, I'm your Huckleberry. Let's go.
Right, exactly.
Say when. You know, that's all you got to do.
Bobo, you look like you've seen a ghost.
Now, to be honest, I was tired. I'd worked all day. I really wasn't in the mood, or else I might have just humored this guy. I'm like, okay, whatever, Gary Clown Man. Oh, okay. But I just turned around, looked right at him. I just pulled my shirt up over my holster, and I just sat there. And I was like, he turned and walked off. I was like, okay, see ya. Exactly. Like, good. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. You walked away. But moving on to the next thing I wanted to talk about is the profit of the found footage genre. It seems to come in pieces. It's not one that has really taken hold the way that sci-fi horror has taken hold, or comedy horror has a good history. But the straight up slasher film is kind of what horror was built on for the most part. But the found footage film, the found footage genre, it's happened in pieces, but it's never really had a big wave the way that other subgenres of horror have. Tex, what do you think is the reason for that?
I would actually disagree with that. Since this movie, the found footage genre has always been there. Most people just didn't realize it. Franchises like Hell House LLC, the VHSs of the world. There's multiple VHS films, and all of those are found footage, analog style horror. If you go through any minor, well, not minor, but any streaming service like Tubi or Pluto, even Netflix has some. Hell, George Romero did a found footage Diary of the Dead zombie film with a big budget.
That's true. Found
footage has always been here. It's just it doesn't get the attention that a lot of these, like a Paranormal Activity, like a Blair Witch does. It's not that it didn't exist. It's just it's kind of a subculture within horror that it's kind of like Fight Club. If you know, you know. Otherwise, you're left out. But it's always been there. It's been there. I mean, since, like I said, technically Cannibal Holocaust was the start, but after Blair Witch came out, they were off to the races. You know what I'm saying? There's been all kinds of found footage movies, of possessions to serial killers, zombie movies. There are tons of them out there. Most people just have never looked because they're not, grindhouse drive-in nerds like myself that search this stuff out. You know what I mean? It's the way it is.
Jeremy, do you think maybe it's kind of a product, the found footage genre not being as prevalent as other subgenres of horror? Do you think maybe it's because that horror has been a much maligned genre as a whole since probably the late 80s? I mean, because let's face it, I mean, horror has never really gotten the respect that it deserves as a genre of film. It doesn't really get attention from the awards. I mean, they have other little horror specific award shows and stuff, but those come and go, and nobody outside that doesn't work in the horror genre and film even knows that they happen most of the time. But I mean, is it just kind of a byproduct of the horror genre not ever really getting the kind of attention that other genres get?
Anyway, I don't know if everybody heard that or not. Somebody's over there screaming for Josh. You need a bigger speaker, man. Well, I don't know where.
What?
Yeah, because I think like Tex said, it's a sub. Thank you, Rachel, in the comments right there. And it's a because like horror is like you got cinema, you got movies, but then you got you break it down. You got thank you. You've got comedies, you got dramas, you got sci-fis, you got action. And horror is one of them. So you already got like this is an avenue of media, and then when you break down horror, like you said, now you got this little subculture of a subculture called found footage. So it's like maybe it doesn't quite get as it really doesn't get enough attention as it is. So that breaking it down to another level maybe doesn't. But I can see what Tex is saying. There's been sprinkles of it here and there, but my only thought with that was maybe, again, like we've been saying, it's the story you're telling. It's like, I mean, that's something that could very easily get kind of bland, or it's the same thing over and over, but you got to make something interesting like this, like some unforeseen witch leaving piles of rocks outside your tent or whatever, or some big monster that came from space or some bullshit that fell into the water and now you're in John Goodman's basement for some reason. You got to make it something. You got to make it something really interesting or something different. Maybe that's kind of where the difficulty comes from, because I know if we saw like 2 or 3 of the same, you're just like, oh, it's the same movie. I don't know. Maybe that's just where the creativity has to sell it, and maybe that's just why it hasn't quite. There could be stuff we haven't found yet. That's some little gem hidden away in the internet somewhere. If you want to take a deep dive.
Yeah, I think when it comes to horror, especially, the found footage genre has a lot of potential. I think it's a very unique way of telling unique stories that you all really can tell in the horror genre. I mean, it's one thing to tell spooky stories. It's something else to have like Freddy, Jason, Mike Myers doing their thing. But like I said, when you're trying to get to something much more internal, much more visceral, let people's minds play tricks on themselves as they're watching your movie, I feel like the found footage genre is a really good way to make it happen. And I think this film is a very good is proof of that. Because I mean, it's funny. There's a piece of trivia in here that I'll talk about later, but they were going to show the witch in a very quick blink and you miss it moment. But for some reason at this point when they were filming, whoever was running the camera at the time didn't turn back when they were supposed to catch that quick, look at whatever was chasing them. And when they were editing it, they were like, we kind of like that you never see the bad thing, because you can't put it in this box of, a person walking around with a knife and the hockey mask and all that. You can't put it in the box. You can't define it. So it makes it more scary. And that to me is where stuff like this really comes into play, because it's one thing to see, it's one thing to walk around Crystal Lake and see all the dead bodies, but when you see Jason standing there in the jumpsuit and the mask with the machete, it gives you this target. It gives you this shape, this package that the evil could resides in, and knowing that it's kind of, you see it in him, but knowing that it's everywhere all at once in the forest around you, and you can't really take a swing at it, you can't fight it. And what happens to them in the movie is they can't even really run from it. It seems like everywhere they go, they're at the mercy of whatever this is. There's no getting away, and that made the movie a lot funner for me to watch. It was much more visceral that way.
Sometimes not seeing it is the best thing. I was gonna say, like, there.
Yeah.
2 or 3 times there, like I saw something about the movie Mama. Like I watched that movie and I'm like, this is kind of scary because I don't see her. You see a glimpse of it real quick, but then I'm like, Then you just show her full frontal just standing there, and I'm like, what? And I turn to Joe Pesci again. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? What is that? Is that? You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird. That's a weird line you got to walk where it's like you can do it wrong, and sometimes it's like it ruins it if you do see it sometimes. But
well,
I don't know. Like, you don't see the shark in Jaws. You don't really see him. You see him kind of under the water a little bit, but to nibble somebody's leg, and then you finally see it, and it's like, oh fuck! I mean, we know what a shark looks like. I mean, we don't know what this Blair Witch looks like in this movie, in this one at least. But I don't know. Even the Bye Bye Man, like, that was a dumb movie, and I fucking watched it. I know. I hate myself too.
Yeah, that was horrible.
But I'm like, why is it just like this dude who just it's the goofiest shit when he's in the library and he's just sitting there getting like closer and closer to every seat. It's just some fucker with a hood up. I'm like, what? I don't know. It can really fall on its face if you do show it. So I agree with Frank. It kind of works better and it hits harder if you don't see it. It just abruptly ends and the camera drops. And I think that's the two scenes that are the most important. Are like the one down in the corner is when the Heather's giving herself a fucking nose examination, and then when you see dude just standing in the corner, and then the right there is when the camera drops. I was like, yeah, that's effective and that works. You don't need to, you need to show it.
Well, as far as the found footage element goes, after Friday the 13th in 2009 had came out, it was a big success. The sequel to that was going to be, we were going to get a found footage Friday the 13th film. They were going to come at it from a different angle, play off of the same Jason, but we were going to get a big time slasher in one of these. But obviously the lawsuit happened that carried on for freaking ever. That's just now ended basically. So we never got that. But the found footage, I can't tell you how many found footage horror films I've seen. I've seen the good ones. I've seen the bad ones. I've seen the ones that you don't even want to talk about. What the best ones do is you cast nobodies. We don't know who these people are because we're not going to care at the end of the day because we don't know it to a certain extent. But the other thing that they can do well is what's the basis of horror to somebody? I think the best found footage films, maybe not quite the woods, but inside the home. When you take something that's safe, something that's warm, something that you're not supposed to be afraid of, and make that scary. Just like Heather in this film. Well, whenever her and Mike are sitting there at the end of the film, what does Mike ask her? Well, what's your favorite thing to do on a Sunday? And Heather says, well, it used to be driving out to the woods to take a hike.
Not anymore.
You have now turned something that is pleasurable. It's good for you. You have made it ugly, evil, and scary. And found footage films aren't safe. That's another reason why I don't think a lot of them get pushed, because you can take a chance in a found footage film. Sometimes it pays off, and most times it doesn't, unfortunately. It just depends on the premise and your execution of it. But I'm a supporter of the found footage movements that have happened throughout the years because it's never really went away. But they just don't get the attention, like Frank said.
Yeah. Also, I think one of the reasons why this movie is kind of held up is because there is this weird mystique around the three people that were in it. I mean, yeah, obviously in the years since this movie has come out, we all know that didn't really happen. Anybody who pays attention to this stuff the way we do has seen countless interviews with these people. They've done panels and stuff at some of the cons and things like that. So we know that it was all pretend. But it's the fact that none of these three went on to become big stars. None of them ended up in a Marvel movie. None of them ended up on big names in a TV show. I think the one who got any real screen time
there was
after
one.
This, the girl that played Heather, she was in Steak and Shake commercials for a couple of years, and then after that, she just retired from acting. And I know one of the guy that played Mike. I know he's done some like producing and directing and a little bit of acting. He's kind of stayed in the underground independent scene, but he hasn't become like a huge name. He hasn't become a big director in Hollywood or anything. So the fact that we don't see these people's names out there all the time is one of the things that leads some people to believe that maybe this was real, or why did their careers not take off after this huge movie that made $200 million on like a $12 budget, things like that. I think that's one of the things that kind of plays into it. Tex, am I wrong?
Oh yeah, no, it's that another star that never really made it big, Katie Featherston. She was the star from Paranormal Activity. She obviously Katie, the main role. She went by her real name. She's a girl out of Dallas. Amazing in those films. She was in the majority of the Paranormal. I think she was in all of them except for the marked ones. I think she may have even been in that one. I'm not sure. But a lot of these found footage people, hell, technically you could call the original Night of the Living Dead an independent film because George Romero, that was not studio backed or produced. That was made out of people he found in Pittsburgh. Just, oh, hey, you're a lawyer. You work at the grocery store. You're an investor. You're whatever. Technically, that was the first independent film, arguably the most successful, not monetarily, but the world of horror is really good about supporting its own. You might have one big movie and you may never get seen again in another, but you go to all the cons. You can get behind the camera, like you said Mike did from this film and everything else. Horror takes care of its own. That's why it's the tight-knit family that it is, because they do get looked down upon by the rest of the cinema world, I guess you could say. Where one goes, they all go kind of attitude. That's why horror has the atmosphere and the kinsmanship amongst horror nerds and everything else. It's a different kind of deal. How many people are actually movie stars these days? Let's be honest. You have people who are in movies, but very few movie stars that you say, oh my God, blank is in this. I have to go see it. There's not many today. You know what I
mean? Not like there were back in the golden era of Hollywood in the good years of like the 30s through like the 70s and into the 80s.
Right.
Yeah, those kinds of actors don't exist anymore. No. But one of the things that I find interesting is at one point, and I'll get into a little bit of trivia here because I think this is worth more conversation than just a little bit of mention. This is at current. It was at one point the top one. This is at current the third most profitable film of all time compared to budget. Now, again, there are some things about. Now, I'm reading this from Insider Monkey. It says that this is number 3. Did a profit. It says profit of $248.6 million. I don't know if that's profit or box office. Those are two very different things. It says it had a budget of $60,000, only to have been beaten since then in 2003 by a film that I have not heard of called Tarnation that made $1.2 million on a budget of $218.32. I'm actually curious as to what this movie looks like now, although I'll probably never get a chance to look at it.
I was going to say,
and then of course Paranormal Activity, which came along. That was made for $15,000 and made $193.4 million. So that right now is number one. But at one point for several years, for about seven or eight years, this was the most profitable movie of all time compared to budget. I don't know, Jeremy, what are some of your thoughts about that? It's mind-blowing something, especially this one, Tarnation. I don't know what this movie is about, but I mean, they made it for $218.32. That's what it says on this,
awesome.
article, and made $1.2 million. I mean, I spent more than that on a pair of shoes, but I mean, I don't know, what do you think of just the idea of turning $60,000 into $250 million?
Well, I'm looking at one right here from actually the year before. The budget was $900 and they made $4 million on the box office. That's pretty insane. I was like, that's well, I guess to answer that, that's what's kind of cool is like you said, you spent that much on a pair of shoes. I'm like, I've spent, my PS5 costs more than that. It costs like twice that. You know what I mean? And for that, now I'm not saying every person with $300 in their pocket is going to make $2 million back, but like that's that cool thing that you think like, damn, oh, I could do that, or you can make something blow up and be successful. Like, it just proves that, again, you don't need a whole lot of things. You don't need a whole lot of money to make something that's effective. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't. Yeah. What the hell was? I think I was watching the first episode of Secret Invasion, and I'm like, that was definitely CG blood on old dude's face when he tried to leap from like 10 stories of a building. I was like, you couldn't spend like $2 on a tube of blood and just why'd you waste all that?
Any,
you know what I mean?
Any Spirit Halloween store has like packs of blood or squeeze tubes of fake blood. You could have just done that.
I know it. I'm like, well, maybe you don't want to get it on his face. You don't want to. He's a big actor, whatever. But I'm like, you spent more money on just trying to make some really that you can tell is terrible CG blood. Come on, you're Marvel. I mean, if you were going to throw money at it, why didn't you make it look better? But that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm like, you don't have to. It's a lot simpler than you're making it. I mean, really. And you can make it, like I said, I got a whole little like oil can size thing of blood over there for like $7. Like you said, from Spirit Halloween. And I'm like, that shit will last me for a while. All you do is just done, like your carry. Boom. Easy. Your blood fixes everything.
Yeah, I was watching an interview with Robert Rodriguez several years ago. He was talking about making like El Mariachi and stuff. I think it was El Mariachi was the film he was talking about. And he was talking about making a movie on a small budget. He goes, so many of these, so many people getting into filmmaking think that you have to spend thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. No, you don't. He was just like, he said, if you watch that movie close enough, you will see the same pickup truck used in about 10 different shots. He's like, one time it's being driven by the good guys getting away. The next, a couple scenes later, it's driven by the bad guys who are all shooting guns out of it. He's like, 5 scenes later, you're going to see it just driving by with pulling a float. He was just like, why buy 20 feet of hose when you only need 10? He was like, why spend that kind of money? He's like, learn to work with what you got, and you could make a film for really, really cheap and make a good quality film, because then you have more time to pour into the story and the characters. And that to me is the essence of great independent filmmaking, is understanding little things like that, not feeling like I can't compete in the market by just having good characters and good story. I have to have explosions. I have to have cool shit. I have to have the new cars and all that. And it's like, no, you don't. That kind of thing. It's nice fluff.
It makes it fun.
It makes it fun in the moment, but it's fluff. You know what I mean?
No, I meant like being limited by that. Like that's kind of the fun of it. It's like you think, oh, this is how I'm going to make this work because I don't have some big effects budget. You know what I mean? Like, there was somebody I watched on YouTube way back in the early days of YouTube that would show you how to do stuff like for cheap. Like he'll show you how to like blow a body in half and have like half your actor looking like his torso is like, separated from his legs. And it's like, you could do that for a few bucks. It's like, and that's how I got into like the things that I love doing, like doing effects and doing props and shit like that. And it's like, it's not as hard as you think. Now creativity does play a big part, and you gotta, like I said, you gotta work with what you got. But it's amazing when you look at stuff. There's somebody they'll show you like, here, you see that prop in this big budget Marvel movie? That was a toy that they spray painted. It was a kid's, like it was Valkyrie's little like viewfinder or whatever the fuck, and they're like, oh yeah, it's a kid's like night vision toy they just painted and slapped shit on it. I'm like, you see what I mean? You just gotta see it, and you just gotta work with what you got. It makes it fun. Have fun, people. Jesus. It's not all about money.
Yeah, no doubt.
It really isn't.
But I don't know. Tex, what do you think? I mean, profitability to budget, like I said 100 times, and you've agreed with me, small and horror tends to go very, very well together. What do you think of the concept of this, them basically spending $60,000 on something that made $250 million?
Anybody can spend $300 million on a movie and make it look amazing. Anybody can do that. Give somebody $50,000 and tell them to go crazy and make the best movie possible. Might be crap. Might just be a genius film. Let's not forget a little film, once again, we mentioned earlier, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Tobe Hooper had little to no money. He had 2 vehicles. He had the cook's truck and then the van which was a prop. Well, it was owned by one of the guys that worked on the film. He basically allowed Toby to use it as crew dressing and shooting for. They had a farmhouse in the country and a gas station that was kind of run down. They had no money to do anything. The lack of budget requires creativity to be good. And that's what I love about horror films is, we get real spoiled these days on, the CGI, it looked bad, blah, 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 blah. We say that all the time. We are so spoiled. Go back and watch the stuff where they don't have that. That's why I love Robert Rodriguez films, especially, the El Mariachis, the Desperado films, all of those that he's done. He does good work because he's not part of I guess technically he is working with Star Wars now, but the films that he's produced, he does them out of basically here in Texas. So, get creative, like Jeremy said with the dude on YouTube. There's more than one way to just throw money at it, figure out your own way. Become the next Tom Savini, the next Greg Nicotero that studied this stuff, that came up with, that created a head out of tin foil and plaster and put fireworks inside of it or something. Do your own thing. You'll figure something out. It's just the way that it works.
Somebody painted a William Shatner mask and they're like, yep, that's it.
Right there. Literally somebody, they bought a William Shatner mask, cut the sideburns off, painted it white, except for that one scene where he's blonde with pink, skin, but we don't talk about that one.
We don't talk about the CG mask either. But
yeah, we don't. It's
also wasn't Jason's mask that same way? Like one of the guys played hockey or some shit, and they said they just gave him the mask. Here, check this out.
It was.
There's your icon now.
Yeah.
I'm like,
in Friday the 13th Part 3, when he gets his set, which I actually prefer cloth mask Jason over hockey mask. I'm one of those few, but one of the guys plays hockey. He goes, "Oh, how about this one? Okay, throw it on him. It works. Get it out.
Right.
It is what it is." So,
it's weird.
Yeah, this article that I was reading. Yeah, this article I was reading that took me to the one on Insider Monkey. It had the most profitable movies of all time compared to budget. Somewhere on that list in the top, I think 10 was the 1978 Halloween movie. It was made for something like $100,000 and made whatever the hell it made.
That's probably fair.
So yeah, that's that right there.
I think
it takes some creativity, especially in horror.
The one film that should be on the list that I guarantee you it's not because the mob owned the rights is once again Chainsaw 74. The mob bought the rights to the distribution to that film, and they were basically knocking off their own film copies to sell. I think that's it's at least top 5. But it should be on there. I don't know if it is or not. But there's a whole story behind it if you want to look into it. How the mob basically screwed Toby Hooper and Chainsaw over. So go check that out.
Well, we got the movie. That's all that matters. But now let's move into a little bit of trivia now. And let me get to my pictures. Let's see.
Hi, Heather.
The directors kept in touch with Heather Donahue, Michael Williams, and Josh Leonard via walkie-talkies to ensure the three would not become lost during their trek. However, they reportedly got lost at least 3 times in the woods filming this movie.
So some of it probably was a little bit real for them, wasn't it?
But that's part of the fun about this entire movie is that it was 99% ad lib. From what I was reading, there was these film canisters, the cans that they would put the film roll in. They would leave those around every day because they filmed this over 8 days in the woods, and every day they would have this place where they would go find the film canister, would have their general directions for the day, but they still did not know exactly what was going to happen. Like the whole tent scene where they were shaking the tent and they all run out of the tent. That was not something that they knew was going to happen. They said, you're going to make camp here and then stay awake and have a conversation about this.
We're going to fuck with you.
They were just like, okay, whatever. And then somebody walks up, starts shaking the tent, yelling boo, whatever. And then they all run out, freaked out because they didn't know what the hell was going on. But that's like, it's just part of the brilliance of the film.
Well, not even just that, but over the 8 days, they would they were leaving food for them, like in those same canisters, everything you're talking about.
Yeah.
And as the days got along, they would leave them less and less food. So they would look even more kind of emaciated and tired and frustrated. So when you're seeing Heather, like one of my favorite shots is when not Mike, Josh is Josh has the camera, and he's kind of he's like right up in her face talking about how, well, we've been out here for blah 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 blah. The look on Heather's face where she looks like she's possessed by the witch herself, and then she just breaks down into tears. That's one of my favorite shots in the whole film, because you really get to see the wear. Like, it looks like she's actually crying. I believe she actually was at that point, but you know, just very cool how they did it.
Yeah. Let's see, another interesting piece of trivia, one that's actually kind of sad. I would be kind of pissed off. Heather Donahue's mother received sympathy cards from people who believed that her daughter was actually dead or missing.
See, there's that marketing doing its magic, though.
Really? I guess that, like, the people that even knew her family didn't realize that she isn't actually dead or missing.
I don't know.
That's crazy shit.
I wonder, one thing I wanted to look at before we did,
but dude, that's crazy.
I forget, because these guys disappeared for a while. I can't remember how long they actually disappeared for after this had came out. I mean, I know they did some red carpets a little bit later, but I don't think I think it was while this was on like the tour circuit of all like the film festivals. I don't think they went to any of those. I'm pretty sure, to kind of sell the realism of it, but I could be wrong about that. It was something like that. I don't know. Very, very interesting way to make film. I like it.
Yeah, another piece of trivia, the three leads actually believed the Blair Witch was a real legend during filming, though of course they knew the film was going to be fake. Only after the film was released did they discover that the entire mythology was made up by the film's creators and that the Blair Witch never existed at all.
That's funny.
But I mean, that's how you sell it.
Real. It's a little real.
I think they based the Blair Witch off of the Cropsey legend out of New Jersey.
Jersey Devil?
I think that's what the Cropsey Jersey Devil, same thing. I think it was kind of based off of that. Like, it's very, because there's a lot of similar characteristics. I think those are similar.
Yeah, but let's see, another piece of trivia. It took 8 days to shoot the film, but 8 months to edit it.
That's fair.
Honestly,
how much they actually got. Yeah, you know.
Well, from what I don't
got to sift through 8 days worth of fucking film, man. Like,
yeah, but they didn't have. But I mean, for 8 days of filming, I don't think they had. I think they said they only had like 60 hours of film, which for an hour and a half. I mean, if you think about it, they'll shoot. I guess that is kind of a lot, but I mean, they'll shoot a ton and a half of film and cut it all down to an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Yeah, like they shoot a lot
of stuff. They might shoot 4 or 5 hours of stuff just to have options to work around when you're in editing. But I don't know, maybe that is a lot. But I mean, I don't know how much they were filming. I mean, if they had 60 hours, that's only about 8 hours of film a day.
And again, this may not be their actual job. It's like this is something they were probably trying to do. You know, still life stuff's going on. You know, maybe they took some time to get it to make it right, make it make sense, try to make some changes here and there. You know, still doing
one thing I did listen to earlier in the day. Eduardo Sanchez, the director, he was talking about whenever they filmed the movie, the ending that we see is the original ending. But the money that was behind it, they basically said, well, they tested it, and the producer was there, and the guy said, well, when they tested the film, they said 19 out of 20 people raised their hands that they didn't understand it, but they were scared. So that they went back and shot 4 other endings. One of them, they found Josh crucified. Another one, he gets bludgeoned or something. Like, they shot 4 different endings to this movie. But at the end of the day, they went with what the artist's vision originally was, because it honestly works the best because it leaves you with so many questions. But, I mean, it's just, one of those things.
Well, yeah, and it's unsettling as hell when you go in the house and you see those little handprints on the wall. You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Are those the kids that went missing? Like, oh, shit. Like, it's so quick, and you're like, you don't catch it if you're not going to catch it.
I'm glad that you mentioned that house. You realize that house shouldn't exist, right? In present day, if you go listen to him in this film and look into the lore, that was Rustin Parr's house. He took those 7 kids and he killed them 2 by 2. Made them stare at the wall, the whole thing, right? Everything else. After that happened, the town burned that house down in the 40s. So why is it still standing?
Liminal spaces. Ooh. It's like a back rooms.
That's
what I mean.
What's that?
I'm trying to look it up. The house is actually a famous house in the area. I read something about it. I'm trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah, well,
it's called.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, in the lore wise, that house was burned down in the 40s. So that should not have been there, which goes into one of the 3 theories that I wrote down here and if you've seen the 2016 film, this really gives credence to it, that area in the Black Hills, it's kind of like a time warp. Once you go into it, time doesn't exist anymore. It's kind of like when you go into the Upside Down in Stranger Things. You can be here. Time ceases to exist. You're in all places at once.
It's like Narnia.
Basically, it's a. I mean, think about it. Even when you read, you can go online and read Heather's diary, where she's writing down as we're seeing in the film. She has, even when she doesn't have the map, she has her compass out, and it says, "We walked south all day." Reading the compass, assuming she knows how to properly read one, you have to for this argument. How do you end up back at the same place? You have to be somewhere where time and space ceases to happen. There has to be a supernatural element that you can't explain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the house is called the Griggs House. It actually is no longer there. It was a historic home located in Granite, Maryland. Yeah. It was built in the style of blah blah blah. Let's see. The house was visible in the 1887 Baltimore County Atlas. In 1984, the Department of Natural Resources conducted a historical survey. Let's see, and it resided on parkland of Patapsco Valley State Park. The property was not used at this time and had interior details removed by vandals. In '99, the house was used for the climactic ending of the Blair Witch Project. After filming, the state of Maryland announced that it would demolish the historic home. As fans were visiting the abandoned house, its condition deteriorated. Funds were raised to save the building based on the success of the movie, and the state released a press announcement saying the property would be spared. However, the house was demolished soon afterwards without any announcement. So the house is unfortunately no longer there, but it was a pretty historic house in the area.
So it doesn't exist.
Not anymore. Or does it?
Or does it?
If you go out there, you might find it. If you find the house out there now, you're kind of fucked. The Blair Witch is about to kick your ass.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did y'all pay attention to there's one detail in the film, I don't know if y'all picked up on or not. Y'all know the whole reason why they even got hunted the way that they did, right? Did y'all pick up on that one scene?
Something about Heather kicking the rocks or moving a rock or something.
Yeah, because she touched it. Yeah.
Heather took one of the trinkets, like one of the little stick men or whatever it was. That's the only reason that the Blair Witch even bothered them. I mean, think about it. The people that came in a year later and found them, they obviously didn't take anything. They were fine. All of those townspeople that have lived there their whole lives, they've never been messed with. So if Heather had not took the trinket, they would have been fine. But it is what it is. I mean, plus she knocked over the rock deals and everything else. So, I mean, when once you realize that whole apologizing scene that's below me right now, it really takes it to the next level because you realize this isn't just her project, but she could have done her project if she had just not took the trinket. They could have gotten home, but once again, Heather's fault. Way to go, woman. So good job.
Leave it up to the woman. First the Garden of Eden, now this.
Yeah,
we gave you a rib, damn it. For what? You got screwed.
I want my rib back.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. In around 46 minutes into the film, the Blair Witch was supposed to be seen in the movie. As the characters were running out of their tent, Heather yells, "Oh my God, what the F is that? What the F is that?" The cameraman was supposed to pan left, where the audience would briefly see a woman wearing a white gown in the distance. But the cameraman forgot to pan left, and the scene was not reshot. And I'm very, very glad it wasn't, because that might have ruined the whole effect. Yeah, like I said, there's one of the great things about this movie is how it uses your own mind against you, your own imagination against you. And I think if you would have actually shown the evil entity, that it would have given it a nice package for you to look at, and it would have changed. It would have altered the way you see the movie.
Well, I mean, I started out saying it, but I'll say it again. It's the lore behind this is incredible. It is so deep. You can go on so many rabbit holes in YouTube of what really happened. Here's this, here's that about Blair Witch. There is so much to unpack here that it's honestly very entertaining to do. There's documentaries, there's this, there's that. And if we had seen the woman, may or may not have happened. It may have just been another schlocky horror film from the 90s and we would have moved on. But it is what it is,
Yeah, let's see. The sounds of children heard at night was actually taken from kids playing around the house of director Eduardo Sanchez's mother. The tape was played over boom boxes in the forest. According to Mike Williams, he found it the scariest scene to shoot in the film.
Oh, yeah. No, that's no argument.
Yeah, there's nothing like the sound of children's laughter, except when you don't actually have kids. Like, oh, fuck.
In the night in the woods.
Yeah.
Then it's kind of.
I think they
ended up. I think they ended up doing the same thing with Josh's voice. When you hear him yelling,
probably.
They did.
They actually recorded his voice, and then played it from different boom boxes and tape recorders at various places around them, so that the sound would be coming from all over the place. So yeah, that's.
Once he finished up his part in person on camera, they took him to an audio studio and got a real clear cut of him hollering out and crying in pain and whatever, and then they played it like that.
Yeah, I don't know what your guys' safe word is, but to maintain the film's fear factor, the three main actors agreed to stay in character for the entire 8 days of filming. Periodically, if an actor had to break from character, then the remaining two actors also had to break from character, but only after collectively reciting their safety word, taco.
Taco. Yeah.
My safe word is blueberry pancakes.
My safe word is Alamo, but it is what it is. So.
Ours in the.
Of course it is. Alamo or Landry. There's only two words that I think you could be your safe words.
Well, it fits. It works. It's not something that you're normally going to say during sexy time. So if I scream Alamo, hey, call off the hounds. Back off a minute. It is what it is.
I was gonna say ours in the devil's room in the haunted cave is pineapples. Just using a sentence and it's like, oh yeah, pineapple upside down cake. Oh fuck, get out there. Something's going down. I said the haunt people stay together. Damn it, we all watch out for one another. God damn it.
Let's see. Numerous fans were so convinced of the Blair Witch's existence that they flocked to Maryland in hopes of discovering the legend. They apparently did not read the closing credits of the film.
Right.
I mean, look, the fact that they were even making a movie about it told me that it was fake, that it was all just an independent film. But the marketing, it's like that's what was one of the things that kind of drew you in. I was like, yeah, I know it's probably just a movie, or else why would they release the footage in movie form? But it was still fun to play it was an interesting role playing game for us as fans. You know what I mean? Because we went in there just like pretending to believe that these people were actually missing and presumed deceased.
Well, that's the whole point of Blair Witch 2 is people saw the movie and then they rushed to the woods to try to solve the mystery. I mean, the whole opening of that film is talking about that. I mean, so once again, they went viral with it as well on that one, and it works. I mean, is Blair Witch 2 a good movie? No, but it's one I love to watch because of how wacky and off the wall it is. I mean, Jeffrey Donovan is incredible in that film. It's like I said, it's a good Batman. I like it. It's all good.
Let's see. Heather Donahue also told Fangora magazine in an interview that the final scene was so terrifying for her that she kept hyperventilating and crying long after the shoot was over. That's not unheard of, because didn't what's her name, Blair, that was in The Exorcist?
Linda Blair.
Didn't she?
Linda Blair, yeah.
Linda Blair. Didn't she also, for like a couple of years after the movie, like she had to like see a therapist and shit like that because just being in the movie kind of fucked with her a little bit?
I can believe it.
Well, it was a mix of that.
That's where I read that.
Well, the reason why she had to have security and had to have therapy was because fans of The Exorcist believed she was actually possessed and were running up to her trying to do exorcisms and chunking holy water on her and stuff. I mean, the Exorcist was that next level hardcore that, when they saw this little girl flipping up back and forth and head spinning around, they lost their crap. You know what I mean? It's, to this day, she still has security because of, overzealous fans. I mean, it's gnarly.
Yeah, I was trying to find a little something about Linda Blair in here, but I'm not gonna take the time to look into that right now. But yeah, I'm sure I'd heard that story somewhere over the years that she had to actually receive therapy. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I guess they had approached her for one or more of the sequels, and she was just like, nah. Because Tim Curry for the longest time didn't want to really acknowledge Rocky Horror Picture Show because he had, I forget what his issue was with it. He just didn't want to be remembered for it. It wasn't until kind of late in his career, really in the last like 10 or 15 years, that he's actually kind of embraced his role in that as Frankenfurter a little bit. That he just really didn't want anything to do with it, which I always thought was kind of odd because, I mean, that's one of the top 3 things that you remember Tim Curry for.
Well, Linda Blair, she was in Exorcist 2. Now, when they did Exorcist 3, they went with the second book in that series, so it didn't have Reagan in it whatsoever. I don't know which. It would have had to have been one of the prequels that they did that maybe she turned down or something. I'm not sure. But, I mean, I know she's back for these new ones because her mom was in it. But, I don't know. I'll have to look it up when we get off of
here. Is Linda Blair in the new one?
I'm gonna say she is.
I haven't heard anything about it. Maybe
they're not gonna blow that.
She's rumored.
True.
Yeah, they want to.
She's rumored to be she's rumored to be kind of like a post-credit scene kind of thing.
How would you not? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I feel like she's gonna be there.
I don't know. I've heard she's dead. And I've heard she's a post-credit scene. I've heard both. I'm not confirming either. I haven't seen the film yet. But even if she's, at minimum, if she is dead, she'll be in flashbacks of some sort, I would imagine. There's no way she's going to miss that payday like that.
Well, she's only going to be in flashbacks. I doubt she's going to be making a couple $1 million. They might pay her like 10 or 15 grand, but
Dude,
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, so you're gonna say we'll be talking about that next week? So,
yeah, here in the next week or two, we'll be all over that.
5th or something like that.
More movies coming out. Saw X, and then The Exorcist, the original Exorcist, and then the new Exorcist. So, yeah, that's gonna be a fun week. But
I can't wait for it.
But yeah, moving on to
Five Minutes at Freddy's.
Oh, me too. I'm really. Let's see. Moving on to the next piece of trivia. Find a good picture. This one will work since I haven't used this one yet. My trivia. Heather Donahue faced considerable backlash as a result of her role, including threatening encounters and difficulty finding other employment. She retired from acting in 2008 to pursue a career in medical cannabis.
Well,
everybody's making edibles these days.
Well, I know she still does the horror circuit because there was a panel discussion that she did with Mike at some horror con from this year. So she's still making money from that. I don't know how much she couldn't be making tons off of it, I wouldn't imagine. But autographs and pictures, they're a good chunk of money to these people. So I mean, she's hey, weed's legal, go get your money. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, no doubt. Get it on the ground floor of that one.
mm-hmm.
Let's see. Another fun piece of trivia. Again, it kind of lends to the authenticity of the movie. Although having been given a brief crash course on using the 16mm camera, Josh Leonard struggled to focus using it for the first few days of filming. This is why the interview with Mary Brown is of such poor focus and incredibly grainy. But I think that he even mentioned at one point early in the when they're in the hotel, I think she was just like, "Do you have much experience with this?" And he goes, "Yeah, like a day."
I used it once.
They even kind of like make reference to that in the movie, which is funny. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but there are some scenes when you watch this thing that, my God, it'll give you a headache if you stare at the screen too long. Like you have to look away because it's just constant. It's bad. It's oh, dude, Cloverfield ain't got nothing on this. There are some scenes in this shot where, when I watched it last night, because I was watching it on my phone, I'm like, oh God! I mean, because it was just so bright in my eyes, and the shaking back and forth. It was almost like a motion sickness kind of thing there for a second, but.
I was trying to convince my girlfriend to watch it with me as we were eating dinner earlier today, and she was just like, "I can't. She said, movies like this just make me motion sickness." She's like, "It's not." She's like, "I can watch," because she doesn't like horror movies very much either. But she's like, "I can watch this movie," but she's like, "The camera shaking is just too much. It just trips my brain out, and I did not feel well." Well, but I mean,
Heather's not as bad.
I know Cloverfield. When Cloverfield came, yeah. I mean, it's bad at various points in the film. I mean, just the whole running through the woods and stuff like that. But I mean, Cloverfield, I know that they had to. I mean, and it came out several years after this. They actually put a disclaimer in front of that movie, not just talking about the flashing lights, but the shaking camera stuff, saying that it can trigger bouts of motion sickness and do all kinds of shit and make you mess up your equilibrium and shit like that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is it worked.
Well.
Let's see. Apparently,
it works for the effect of the
Donahue
film.
brought a true, but apparently Heather Donahue brought a knife into the forest while filming was taking place because she didn't like the idea of sleeping with two guys.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I believe that.
That's fair.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense because prior to being cast in this movie, they didn't know each other. It's not like these people had been friends for a long time. They decided to go do this movie together. They met for this movie. So so while she probably knows them a lot better now, 20-something years later, she probably didn't know them very well at all then. So I can understand her trepidation. But all right, Jeremy, I'm gonna give you this one. I'm gonna set the over/under at 120. How many times is the word "fuck" used in this movie?
I was watching this, and about 2 minutes in, I'm like, Frank's gonna fucking ask me how many goddamn F-bombs are in this fucking movie. And the goddamn whoever on Amazon butchered the shit out of these captions, like refused to put any of the actual like profanity in this movie. So I'm like, cool, I can't even count if I wanted to. But I'm gonna say over, and I don't really care how over. It's fucking. You said 120. 130.
So
I'm going over.
So you're taking the over. Okay. Hey, Tex, what do you think? I got the over under at 120. more or less how many times the word fuck is used?
121.
I'll go under 100, Bob.
They got to go 99. You can't go over 100.
You know, just listening to it. Just listening to it, I was like, good God, they say fuck more than text does. I was like, it's like their favorite word.
I was listening to this and
I
I'm
was
like,
watching it.
They have the same speech pattern as me. I'm like, oh God, they talk just like I do. Jesus Christ.
Right.
They really do.
I think they dropped the F-bomb no shit like 4 or 5 times in one sentence at one point in the movie, and I was just like,
probably.
Yeah. Well, the more frustrated
let's see.
More
the film uses the word. True. Yeah, especially late in the movie. The film uses the word fuck 154 times.
Wow.
I was gonna say something
probably
ridiculous like 150, but I was like, nah, it's gotta be over for sure. Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, let's talk for a minute about this iconic shot right here of her facing the camera, giving the whole speech. This actually,
it was an accident.
This is how accidents turn into absolute gold.
Yes.
At around 1 hour and 10 minutes, the close-up of Heather Donahue's face as she tapes her farewell video was unintentional. Donahue planned to have her whole face in the frame, but she had zoomed in the camera too much. However, the directors thought that the closeness to all the tears and phlegm really added to the ugly realism of the scene and kept it in.
That's some good shit. Especially when she looks off to like the right for a second and she's just staring at something. I'm like, yeah, that's your visceral shit. It's up in her face and it's real. Like, you know what I mean? And you talk about an iconic shot. Not only the dude standing in the corner, but that's, going right up in her face.
Well,
happy accidents. Bob Ross, happy accidents.
Yeah. There are no mistakes, just happy accidents. I was actually amazed that, and Tex talked about it a little bit earlier. They actually did go back and do several reshoots for this film after the rights were bought by Lionsgate. It wasn't just the ending. I think a couple of the shots actually ended up in the eventual, at least probably the home media releases. I don't know about the theatrical releases, but I think 1 or 2 shots probably made it in. I don't know what. But they did actually go back and do reshoots after Lionsgate paid $1.1 million for the distribution rights to the movie. So I'm glad they didn't screw up too much, though, especially the ending. I really like the ending.
I don't know specifically about other reshots. I do know the ending was reshot 4 ways. They may have picked up some more just walking footage, which is technically the whole film. The only other thing that I know that they picked up, because what I talked about earlier, how 19 out of 20 people raised their hands and they were confused, right? One of the things that they went and picked up was the interviews with the townspeople, especially the guy that's like where he tells about Rust and Parr, because you see when they first talk to him, he's in front of us, he's in the store or whatever. But when you see him again, it's with the black and white camera. And that's when he talks about how he took him into the basement. He did all the things. That was a reshot that I do know was done. But the rest of it, I'm not for sure. I did hear that whenever I was researching this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 of the reshoots ended up in there, but hopefully not too much of the movie was done after the fact. I mean, it all worked out in the end. I think it's a very interesting movie to watch overall, but it all worked out in the end.
Right.
Let's see. One last piece of trivia before we start to get out of here. Let's see. At around 1 hour and 6 minutes, the teeth found by Heather near the end, supposedly Josh's teeth, were real human teeth supplied by director Eduardo Sanchez's dentist. And the hair really belonged to Josh Leonard.
I mean, he had a lot of hair.
Realism, my friends. Realism.
They put real bodies in the pool.
I think I should have made that
in the poltergeist.
But
so
they're gonna say poltergeist, yeah.
This shit's horrifying. Fuck that.
That's
real.
But let's go. Toby Hooper would do anything otherwise.
They used real animals and they were puking in between scenes. So I mean, hey, it works.
It worked. They used real blood and pig guts and made the clothes smell like ass. They were filming in a hot Texas summer over the course of a couple of weeks. So yeah, that worked out great. Realism in filmmaking, damn it.
Yeah.
But let's start to wrap this thing up now. I'll go to you first, Tex. Give me some of your final thoughts on the Blair Witch Project.
Integral piece of horror history, must watch. Watch this in the right mindset. Be in a cooler, dark room, not a lot of noise around. Kind of get the ambiance going for something like this. Because if you watch this with the lights on in the middle of the daytime, it's not going to hit you the same. You have to picture yourself outside. I mean, maybe even watch this on a tablet, go outside in the backyard and watch it or something. If you have like out in the country or something. But yeah, this film will forever be remembered. It's a legend, no doubt.
Yeah, Jeremy, how about you? Final thoughts on the Blair Witch Project?
It's definitely worth watching in this time of year. Like Tex was saying, like when it starts getting cool out, it's starting to. They said they did it in October, so
this is technically a Halloween movie. It happened at Halloween. You saw the decorations and stuff. So.
Yeah, it happened in October in '94. So I mean, yeah, go out and go get a projector. Go out in the in your yard with some friends. And
dude, that's the way to watch it.
You know what I mean? Like go out on a cool fucking like fall night and just go watch this movie. Yeah, it'd be a fun watch. Like even like I said, even if you want to watch it in your own home, just turn off all the lights, just have that playing. And yeah, it's gonna sink in more. Like something me and my friends used to do, we'd hang out, but like later at night around 9-10 o'clock, we'd purposely go on, like I said, like on the internet and find creepy shit like this and just try to scare the shit out of ourselves. And that's something this movie could do for you, and it's definitely worth a watch. Like I said, it's one of those horror icons that, like, even if you don't know, you've seen that face down there. You've seen Heather up in her grill, so it's worth it getting there. And it's a good movie. Once it gets there, it gets there. With or without the map, you'll get there. Whether you go south or you go east, whichever one didn't work.
Directions don't matter in this.
Follow the creek.
Right.
Follow the
this
creek.
is America,
follow
damn it. Just follow the water.
Cross the street with the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, it's one of the top 5 independent films ever made. I think it's pretty easy to say that. I mean, it's right up there with Clerks and a couple, and Dazed and Confused and a couple other things. Again, it's a different. I mean, it's a horror movie, but it's a different kind of horror movie. And I don't just mean that because it's found footage. I mean that because it's not the atypical horror movie. Like I said, the guy with the machete chasing kids around Camp Crystal.
More suspense than anything.
It builds tension in a way that great horror movies do without being a straight up slasher horror film or having all the crazy visuals. Like I said, for being a decent horror movie, there's almost no blood in this movie at all, with the exception of the part where they find the teeth. That's the only blood you really see in the entire movie. The rest of it is all just build up. And it's great that because you get to a point, like, especially when they start to really feel the pressure of being lost out in the woods, and you can see them start cracking under the pressure mentally, that at that point, you've witnessed them experiencing the scary stuff, but you're still trying to process exactly what it is you're seeing. You haven't had a chance to be scared yet. And then you get into the children laughing in the woods and Josh, screaming help in the woods and stuff like that. And that just builds more tension. You're waiting for that big explosion that they just wait. They edge you a little bit, if you know what I mean. They get you right into it. They're like, nope, you're not getting there yet. And then you finally get to the house the last like 5 or 10 minutes of the movie, and that's where everything just kind of like falls into place. And even then, you're still kind of left with you're still left with all this anxiety, all this pinned up shit, because it just ends kind of suddenly. And there is no epilogue. There is no TV footage of them of people walking out with body bags on stretchers and stuff like that to kind of let you know that it's coming to an end. It just ends, and you're still left there trying to process everything that had happened in the last 5 or 10 minutes. It's a fun movie. It's great independent filmmaking. I wish I could make a film this good for not a lot of money, for $60,000, and stuff like that. It's a really, like I said, it's a great movie. It's a great watch. Even if you're not a fan of horror, again, it's more suspense than it is blood and guts and stuff like that. So maybe this is a movie that not horror fans can watch and kind of get the horror effect. Because one of the things I've always liked about horror is it kind of makes us face mortality, whether our own or just death, period, without having to actually experience it in a very real way. We get to kind of, because there's something in the human mind that wants to face death somehow, and that's one of the things that's great about horror movies is we can do it vicariously through horror movies in a couple hours at a time and then leave. So
that is that.
Yeah, it's a great movie. You can watch it right now.
Also, that last thing she says when she finally bomb drops right at the end, after she says, "I'm sorry," then she just goes, "I'm gonna die here." It's like it just sunk in for her. It's like shit. Damn.
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
I think she finally broke.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great movie. You can watch it. It's free with ads on Freebie on Amazon. I think it's probably on one or two of the other streaming services. I watch it on Amazon, but I think it's probably on a couple other ones.
Yeah.
You guys can go check it out. Or like I said, or if you're still on the physical media thing, this is probably something you get on physical media. I wouldn't have Blu-ray would be kind of pointless to have this movie, in my opinion, because I think the grainy, shitty quality of it kind of adds to it. That's one of the things I've always liked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre is that grainy, weird sepia kind of feel that it has. The viewing experience has a texture that only horror movies from the 70s had because of the way the film was developed and all that. It gives it that weird haze, which makes everything a little bit more interesting to watch visually. That's one of the things I've always liked about that movie. Is that grainy texture of the film. But yeah, go check it out. It's a lot of fun. Again, the 90s, for all the stuff in the 90s that didn't work, the independent film scene in the 90s was fucking banging. I mean, there was some really great independent film coming out in the 90s because we were transitioning from the blockbuster explosive shit of the 80s into other things, and the technology was changing. Storytelling was going through this weird renaissance. And maybe that's one of the reasons why the 90s maybe didn't work for me as well as the 80s, because there was a lot of weird things kind of moving around in the industry, ways that you make movies and things like that. But I mean, this is one of the ones that absolutely hits. The independent film scene was fantastic. There were so many. I mean, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels is another one. Some of the Guy Ritchie stuff from his early career. Things like that. Was it Train Spotting? Things like that. I mean, there were so many great small productions that came out during the 90s. That are fantastic. Maybe that could be a theme for a month as we just start tearing into some of these independent films of the 90s and early 2000s, because there's plenty of them that we can
Clerks,
talk about.
baby.
Very, very good. Clerks, baby. Let's do it.
I'm ready.
We got to get to those Clerks movies eventually. But yeah, I want to thank my amazing co-hosts for coming to hang out with me tonight. As always, my two horror aficionados. We have a busy month of horror ahead of us starting on Tuesday. We're going to hit October running with Saw X. I'm probably going to go see it Sunday at some point. That's my plan. But I'm looking forward to it. Again, the Saw movies haven't done much for me after like the third or fourth one, so I kind of fell off the Saw wagon. But I'm interested to see where
we got you covered. Don't worry.
I really wish. Yeah, I'm going to need a primer. I'm going to need a primer. Yeah, I'm going to need a primer from you guys before I go see the movie. So make out like a cheat sheet, like a clip notes of things I need to know and stuff like that. Just give me some of the details so that way when I go into
it's not like you have 9 hours of footage of us that you can go back and listen to.
Right. Right.
Exactly. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Saw X. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then after Saw X, we go right to maybe one of the greatest films ever made, and the original Exorcist film from the 70s. And then after that, we're doing the new Exorcist film, which I like the trailer. It's very promising. I'm hoping for a great movie. I'm trying not to let my expectations get too high because the original Exorcist is one of my favorite films of all times. But I'm just going to go in there. I'm going to go in there open-minded, wanting to enjoy what we get from David Gordon Green. I'm hoping that it's going to be a good movie. And then of course on to a couple of classics. And then on to a couple of classics, and we're going to end with Five Nights at Freddy's on Halloween. Kind of the perfect night to do that on Halloween. It's gonna be a fun month coming up. And then of course you're gonna see us talking football, me, Tex, and Marcus over the course of the next couple of months. So my hetero life mate Jeremy, what do you got going on, my man?
Yeah, a whole lot of horror, apparently.
Hell
Still, and that's my little weekend gig. So there was the music trying to play me out. What the hell? That was it. Goodbye.
I know. I actually clicked on it.
Okay. I was like, okay, well, I do spooky stuff for a living, not living, but for fun. Okay. Yeah, I do that, and sitting here still trudging through Fortnite. I've only got 3 more times I have to get 10 kills and a win. We've actually been plowing. I might make it. Yeah, other than that, like I said, just this show, and to be fair, we're doing, as many of you know, I'm getting married. So there's probably some days where I'm not going to be here because we're looking at stuff or doing whatevers. So that was a hint. Next week, I won't be here on Thursday. But, that's, I'm on X, Twitter, whatever the shit. And I don't know. Like I said, now, see, I love talking about this kind of stuff because now I'm weirdly inspired again because I rolled around an idea actually with Brooding Gamer. His stuff's down there too. If you like Jurassic Park, if you like Haunted Mansion, he's into spooky stuff too. I rolled around an idea for some analog horror with him and Rachel in there. So I don't know if you see some creepy little YouTube channel pop up where people are getting possessed and could be some twists and turns. Is it real? Is it not real? And that's for you to find out. That's my outro.
And to the shape from the Lone Star State, my man Tex, where can the folks at home find you on the internet, sir?
Well, if you want to find me at Twitter tonight at midnight, I will be seeing Saw X. I won't be giving spoilers. I'll be saving that for the show, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody else. But my friends were lucky enough to hook me up for tonight. Stupid me didn't go get the tickets, so they had to give them to me. But thank you. So I will be celebrating some good jigsawiness, and we'll be back here next week to break it all down. So it'll be fun.
I'm excited.
As for me, you will find me here again, like I said, the 3rd, Saw X. So you're going to see us here Tuesday breaking down whatever Jigsaw gives us out of this movie. Like I said, I'm going into this one open-minded as well. Like I said, I just want to be entertained for a couple hours. If they do that for me, I will walk out of the theater a happy man. But I'm kind of excited to see what if this is going to get back to what it was earlier in the franchise.
This feels like it is.
I'm excited about that. Because the first couple of movies I was with, they kind of lost me. Even for Saw, it got a little bit outlandish for me after about the 3rd or 4th film. But if they're getting back to like what the core of this what the core of this franchise is, and I'm pretty optimistic about what this movie is going to give us. All I know is I'm looking forward to it. And then of course the Exorcist movie is coming up. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm very excited about the next 3 reviews we're going to be doing. Saw, I'm really hopeful about it. The original Exorcist, I love that movie already, and I'm optimistic about the new Exorcist film. So we're going to see how that plays out. Once that hits the theater, and then we'll be out here to give you guys our breakdown. Until such time, I want to thank you guys for coming hanging out with us. I very much appreciate it. Until next time, adios.
Josh!
I wouldn't go with a
Josh.
I wouldn't take a knife out there. I'm straight up rolling out there with a gun. I'm gonna have full body armor, full loadout, plate carrier, the whole smash.
Josh.
I'm not messing around.
She did say that pack was pretty damn heavy, so.
If Josh doesn't come back, I'm smoking his cigarettes. I'm telling you all right now.
They're in the bottom of your pack. Damn it.
Dude, has he been gone long enough we can call dibs on his stuff?